Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us for another AE member webinar. Before I introduce our speaker today, I just want to go over a few quick announcements. Following the webinar, you will receive an email with a certificate of attendance and a recording of the webinar. If you're interested in obtaining a copy of today's presentation, you may email our speaker at b.burgoyne@baumann-us.com. I've put a copy of Ben's email address in the PowerPoint as well. We will also be doing a Q&A following the presentation. You may place any questions in the question box on your side panel. Without further delay, I would like to introduce today's speaker, Ben Burgoyne. Ben will be presenting on the power of visualizing trend data to optimize building performance. Ben earned a Bachelor and Master's of Architectural Engineering, Mechanical Specialty at Penn State University and has 10 years of experience in building commissioning at Baumann Consulting, having led or participated in over 100 commissioning projects located in the US, Germany, the Netherlands, Switzerland, Greece, and other countries. His specialty is in use of trend data for the optimization of system performance. I want to quickly thank Ben for volunteering to present this webinar, and I will be switching over my screen for Ben to begin his presentation.
Thanks, Cheyenne. I'm going to share my screen now. And hello, everyone. I'm honored and excited to talk to you today, and to be honest, to talk about a topic that I really enjoy as part of my typical day-to-day work. And I want to actually start off with it. I have a few questions prepared for during the course of this presentation, and a couple of them will be poll questions, and when I cue those, Cheyenne is going to activate a poll questionnaire. So if you could be ready, if you'd like to participate, to click on certain multiple choice answers. And there's some other questions later on that are not poll questions, but are looking for feedback and examples. And I'll address those when I come to those later on. But the first question actually right here, Cheyenne, go ahead. I want to open up that question is, I'm curious who is in the audience today? Who is sitting here for the discussion? And so the question is, please select the role that best describes your position. Cheyenne, can you pull up that question?
The poll is now open. We'll leave it open for about another 30 seconds to a minute, and then I'll close it out and share the results with everyone.
Great. And I will throw out there, I'm sorry if I did not capture all particular roles or positions, but I'm eager to see who we have here.
Okay, I am going to go ahead and close this poll out, and here are the results.
All right. I'm going to, sorry, Cheyenne, I did not see the results come up, but I don't know if
do you want me to run through them real quick?
Yeah, that would be great.
All right, so 4% is building and facility owners. We have about 25% that are property managers, energy and sustainability managers, and facility operators. Our biggest group is with 57%, we have energy and technical consultants or service providers. And then we have about 2% that are contractors, and the other 11% is in our other category.
All right. So we've got a fair distribution. I myself am a commissioning agent. That's what I primarily do. Mostly new construction and also existing building. And so I would have clicked in the consultants category. I am one of the 57%. And so, okay, great. Nice to meet you all. I am going to talk about data and its use for building performance. And there's and it's what I'm talking today is mostly related to the process of monitoring-based commissioning or ongoing commissioning. But I'm not going to dive so much into the particulars of how the process works, but I'm going to talk about what the value, the potential that it can bring. And let's see here. All right. So I realize I'm talking to the AEE. We are all steeped in energy, and we probably are pretty passionate about it. So a lot of the terms that get thrown out nowadays regarding sustainability, terms such as you see here, carbon neutral, emissions, net zero, footprint, EUI, that are part of your daily lingo, are also becoming bigger and bigger terms throughout the world in general. Energy codes are becoming more and more stringent, requiring higher and higher building energy performance. And a lot of municipalities, cities, counties are setting goals for carbon neutrality and so on. And there's a lot of push nowadays. And the thing about a lot of these terms, especially the term EUI, energy consumption, is it's an outcome. It's a score on a report card. But you can't just flip a switch. As you all know, you can't just flip a switch and turn down energy consumption. You have to implement some sort of change or process to get from A to B. And so that's the question: is what can we actually do to decrease energy consumption in facilities? And here's my next poll question. And I'm really curious for those all listening. Which of us are currently experiencing pressure to reduce our facilities' energy consumption? And I would also say, or pressure to reduce facility consumption of our client. So Cheyenne, if you could activate that poll.
That poll is launched, and I'll leave it open again for about another 30 seconds to a minute so we can get everyone's responses in.
Okay.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and close this poll out now and share the results. Are you able to see them this time, Ben?
I am not.
Okay, so we had about 63% of our audience say yes, they are experiencing pressure. About 16% say no, and 22% that was not applicable to them.
Okay, great. All right, thank you so much for the feedback. All right, so reducing energy consumption, how do you get there? Now, one thing I like about engineering, or the way what I learned about the definition of engineering is that, or what some have called the definition of engineering is, there's always multiple ways to solve a problem. And I think it's the same here. You want a certain building energy performance, and there's lots of ways to get there. There are, for example, there's a lot of great guidance that comes from the green certifications that exist currently in the U.S. Some big certification bodies are the USGBC, Green Globes, International Code Council, that's less a certification as a code. Other certifications that I've seen include DGNB, which is the standard German sustainability certification, and BREEAM, which is from Great Britain. And they all have their unique qualities, but they share a lot in common, including prerequisites and credits about sustainability and materials and methods and processes, and also energy consumption and commissioning. Now, as we know, more and more buildings, particularly new buildings, are going for certifications like this, and which include implementing energy performance measures, and that's already making a great difference in bringing performance to the next level. However, what I have and my colleagues have also seen is, even if a building gets a new certification like this, say it's a brand new building, top of the line, just got completed, has a brand new plaque hanging outside, does that necessarily mean that everything's great? That the energy performance is ready to go? Not necessarily. It's not always the case. And to illustrate that, I have an illustration here. I like to think about when I to be honest, when I explain commissioning to friends and family who are not in the building industry, and I say a lot of times that when people think of a building, they think of a manufactured product like a phone or a car. And imagine for argument's sake that you decided to purchase a brand new car, except this particular model that you are purchasing has never been built before. And they bring all of the pieces to your driveway to assemble it. And on top of that, each of the different system types are going to be put together by different companies. And how do these factors impact the chances that something gets missed? Either a part is missing or installed wrong, or something is wrong with the programming of the systems, or the adjustments aren't quite right. Think about how you would go about verifying that everything is right, and hopefully before the builders go home. Additionally, even a perfectly built car can't just be driven around indefinitely without doing all those things, those nice things that the manual tells you to do every 6 months to 9 months, 12 months, change the oil, the filters, get it inspected, and so on. And it's the same thing with the building. Even brand new, designed and built by true experts, energy performance is not guaranteed, because there's just too many moving parts, and it's got to go through reality in real life. And every building is a prototype. So I actually have the next few slides. I've gathered some examples of issues that we found in brand new buildings that either affected energy performance, or indirectly through their occupant comfort or maintenance. In this case here, there's an air handling unit, and what we see, or a couple of air handling units, and what we see here is a carpet plot, or a heat map, and the way to read it is picture an Outlook calendar, where each column is one full day. In this case here, from midnight, so from early morning all the way through noon and through the end of the day. And we're looking at supply fan and return fan pressure, or duct pressure. And what we can glean from that is when this air handling unit is operating and when it's not operating. And looking at the scale down here, blue is when the pressure is extremely low, around 0, indicating the unit's off. and then other colors indicate different or varying pressures that are being maintained in the ductwork. And so what we ought to see in the case here is some nice looking rectangles that indicate standard around 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. or so operation Monday through Friday, and then the blue rectangles in between, or the gaps in between, are weekend operation. And what we noticed here is that in the first year of operation, there are often adjustments or tweaks that are made. We see various different pressure set points that are being maintained. And what we also noticed here is after some transitions in the system, the same airflows are being, or the same operation schedule is being maintained Monday through Friday or Monday through Thursday at the normal times. But on the weekend, Saturday and Sunday, the units were running 24/7. That's something that we noticed there, where energy inefficiency was taking place. The units were running unnecessarily 24/7 on the weekends, and also something that potentially could easily go unnoticed. Here's another example, and this is also an air handling unit. We have the supply fan pressure, the return fan pressure, and we also have operation of 2 exhaust fans that are serving the same space, the same zones. And this is a particular building that has no cooling system. It's located in near Frankfurt, Germany, and so there's a nice operation they call nighttime cool off. During the summer, if the outside air during the night cools off to a certain, it drops down to a certain point, to kick on the air handling units and let that cool air filter through the building and pre-cool the building for the next day, the next hot day once the sun comes up. And that's actually what we see during the operation. What we see in these little rectangles in these plots. And so it happens at the same time the building was having issues with, or especially these spaces were having issues with air pressurization. The air pressure is off in the building. This is a view of one of the spaces. There are several spaces that have these movable partitions, and when they were closed, which was also often the case, the facility operator had to walk around every morning and push the walls back onto their tracks, because during the night the air pressurization had pulled them off their tracks. And what we noticed here was at night, when the night cooling operation was taking place, the air handling unit was ramping up operation, but the exhaust fans were not going into operation. So when you have air getting shoved into the building, but not enough air coming out of the building, it's like blowing the building up like a balloon. And that's something that we noticed, a little tweak in the a little idiosyncrasy in the programming that caused an issue. Here's another air handling unit, and what we see here is a heating coil valve and the cooling coil valve. And this is a case where at night the cooling coil valves were stuck at around 30% or so, while the heating coil valves open up all the way. So we have here a nice clear instance of simultaneous heating and cooling in the air handling unit, and that's something that we noticed and pointed out. And the thing about whenever you have parallel systems affecting a certain control variable, for example, you want a certain supply air temperature coming out of the unit, and you have multiple control components included in that sequence. In this case, a heating coil and a cooling coil. Then there's a potential. Then they operate in parallel, and there's a potential that they can work against each other. And an interesting thing, when systems are running in parallel, there's the danger that they can run against each other. And also when they're running against each other, you can't always see the outcome or you can't see the issue unless you're looking for it. In this case here, it's kind of like driving a car, but with your foot on the gas and the brake at the same time. In the end, you're going the speed that you want to go, but you're burning a whole lot of energy. And back to the air handling unit, occupants aren't going to complain because they're comfortable, regardless of what energy might be what excess energy might be consumed in the background. In this example, this plot shows several space temperatures being plotted on degrees Celsius over time. And in degrees Celsius, the classic or the typical comfort range is from around 20 degrees Celsius to 25 degrees Celsius. And as we were tracking this along, we noticed that the general room temperatures were starting to drop systematically lower and lower and lower. In which case we raised a flag and they were able to get them back up into the comfort range again. And it turned out the case was there's a hot water. These spaces are conditioned through a radiant heating, and the supply hot water temperature had a reset based on outside air temperature, and that's what we see over here: outside air temperature and supply water temperature. And there's a curve. The colder it is outside, the higher the hot water temperature. And so the fix here is they adjusted the set point and shifted the curve over a little bit to provide a little bit warmer water to the spaces. Now, a nice thing about looking at this over time is that if someone were looking at a snapshot of room temperatures, maybe around here, mid to late November, they might see room temperatures around 18, 19 degrees. And someone might reasonably think, all right, there's no problem there. It's not 20 degrees, but it's pretty close. There's no issue. But being able to see it with a bit more perspective, you see a downward trend. And it was good that they addressed the trend before it kept going further and further down. Here's an example of doing a little investigating, so you can find out what isn't the issues. This is an office building they called us in to address complaints they were receiving from the occupants about it not being comfortable. And we came in with a what is this called? This is a thermal comfort tool, measuring station. And it's a little bit hard to see in this picture, but there's a little tripod there with several sensors attached, and it's taking in the room temperature, the radiant temperature, the airflow, or the air speed in the space, the humidity were some of the big ones, and using those inputs to calculate the PMV and the PPD of the space. And going through and doing this for a selection of spaces, we found that actually the results were pretty close to zero, which is optimal thermal comfort. And so here we found that actually, in truth, the systems were operating correctly, or that there were good conditions in the space. Now that doesn't mean that there's not issues. That if the occupants aren't happy, then of course that's an issue. But oftentimes, especially on a busy day, if the phone's ringing off the hook, people want fixes right now. They want it yesterday. It's often really enticing to just go and change a set point, or ramp something up, or turn something up all the way, or put something in a manual. And it's being able to investigate a little bit more into the cause of the issue can help prevent making an energy consuming measure that actually doesn't address the core problem. So here I've kind of summed up a lot of the typical issues that we tend to see come up in building operation, even during that first year of occupancy, or for relatively new high class building. And those are the items that I pointed out before: overventilation, incorrect fresh air control, simultaneous heating and cooling, and so on. In general, what we see, like the way of things for building operation is, after building gets turned over, the actual occupancy or the equipment in the space is different than what was designed or specified or calculated for. Or we see changes in set points and schedules, oftentimes in order to address immediate need, or something put in hand, but or a system undertaken to manually make adjustments, whether on a seasonal basis or on a yearly basis. And that's what we see are items that really that looking at the trend data really helps to see what how those equate to performance, and then in turn how that performance equates to energy consumption. And it's interesting to note that when occupants don't complain, and when occupants don't complain, they're comfortable, there's fresh air, and they're doing fine, but they won't notice, like, thermal comfort is not impacted when energy recovery or generation or efficiency aren't happening, or when systems are running 24/7, or when systems are fighting against each other. And so those high energy consuming issues then might go unnoticed because they're not a squeaky wheel. And again, these are some highlights from new buildings. What about the other 98%? What about all those existing buildings out there? What kind of imagine what kind of issues that could be out there to be addressed. And here I'm going to come to a question. I have the pink box down there, and you might notice in your webinar control panel there is there's a box for questions, and those you should have that box is where you should put the questions that you have and would like to state that we'll address at the end. And there's another box called chat. And here I would love to hear everyone's inputs for the question. Be interested in what performance issues have you seen in your facilities or your clients' facilities that have surprised you, that I would love to add to our list of things that can happen, things that are out there. So feel free. I'm not going to break now and wait for you all to go ahead and enter any input that you have. Just feel free to go ahead and toss it in, and I would love to take a look a little bit later to see what we got. So with all the things that could go wrong or issues that can come up in a building, what do we do? How do we avoid these issues? And that's where monitoring-based commissioning comes in, or ongoing commissioning. And first off, this is monitoring-based commissioning, or analyzing or reviewing data is not the only way to save energy. Like I said before, there's always multiple ways to get from A to B. But I'd like to point out that this is a good way. And the value of monitoring-based commissioning, the examples that I just showed you over the last several slides, we discovered all those issues through going through the process of monitoring-based commissioning. In short, again, I'm not going to go through in depth and through the process of monitoring-based commissioning or how it's defined by LEED or other, or ASHRAE or the Building Commissioning Association. Feel free to look into that, and I'm happy to share references to a clear description of the process. But the process is also very flexible. How much time does a facility operator have each day to sit down and explore energy optimization? I'm not a facility operator. I imagine they don't have that much time, or that varies widely with roles and portfolios, and how much the phone is ringing. And monitoring-based commissioning can be carried out by an operator or an energy manager, or by an outside a third-party expert. But the important thing is that the process is well defined and it's worked out, and it's tailored to the situation and to the facility. Because even if a top of the line expert with tons of experience and know-how comes in and analyzes that building backwards and forwards and provides a great list of measures and fixes, they still need to be implemented, and so that it requires buy-in from all the players in the facility. In general, I've listed the general steps to monitoring commissioning here. Investigate the system in operation and get to know what you have and what you have to work with. See what data you have available and analyze it, review it, implement the changes. Most of what we see, or what we've seen from buildings that were relatively recently turned over or built, most of the fixes are low and no cost. And there's been research in the past years through the Building and Commissioning Association and national laboratories about the potential savings. So that first step in investigating, getting to know how energy is consumed in your building, or what the flow of energy is in the building, and what's metered, what are the users, and so on. This here is a energy flow schematic, or you might have, we tend to put this together for the projects that we work on, also to help us understand energy flow in a building. You may also have a metering concept, which is very similar. But it's whatever you have or whatever you can put together that accounts for the major energy users in your building, a cooling tower and chillers, boilers, district heating, air handling units, heating loops, cooling loops, and so on. And the value of placing the meters that you have to work with, whether they're energy meters or it's trend data from building operation, from control system data points. It's great to put it on a map. Having an energy use breakdown. This is probably typical graph used by most of you who are listening. It's worthwhile to know what impact your systems have on your overall energy consumption and where potential lies. And what I haven't shown here is knowing your EUI and knowing or assessing a benchmark, finding out through Energy Star or CBEX for the Department of Energy what typical buildings of that building type or that usage type, what they tend to consume or how the energy is broken down. once you know what you have to work with, you start to assess or determine what variables you want to review, what you want to look at, what data you want to look at, how to formulate that into graphs and charts. What we tend to do is look at the sequence of operation. If you look at the sequence of operation, you can identify what data points are key in the sequence, in the operation, in the controls strategy. For an air handling unit, discharge air temperature, set point, hot water coil, economizer, cooling coil. Pulling those out, and the items that are relevant for what's coming out of that system is that first step. Identifying the data points that are those data points that you care about, and then seeing what kind of potential there is to get data from those points. Here's an example of something that we put together for evaluating a cooling coil valve versus a heating coil valve. And something we call this an operation pattern is create a pattern of what the system should look like, or what the graph should look like once you've plot the actual data onto it. In this case here, green is good and red is bad. And for a heating coil and a cooling coil, normally they should never be open at the same time. And so either that cooling coil valve is modulating 0 to 100%, or that heating coil valve is 0 to 100%, but never at the same time. And creating such an ideal or operation patterns, knowing beforehand what it ought to look like, what the data ought to look like, helps reveal the actual operation once you put the actual data into a graph. And here we saw simultaneous operation, and communicating that with the building team or the controls contractor, or bringing someone out to make the adjust, or whatever's necessary to make the adjustments in the sequencing, and then collecting further data to see, okay, I see a nice clean shape. Data can be represented in all sorts of graph types. This is a scatter plot. You see line plots. You saw that heat map or carpet plot that we've seen before. Sometimes it takes a little bit of thinking or a little bit of time playing with graphs or visualizations to get familiar with it, to know what you're looking at. But once you do, then the analysis becomes very quick and efficient, because it's pattern recognition. It's looking for what looks right, what doesn't look right, or what matches our optimal shape or what doesn't. And so applying that on a routine basis over time makes for a quick and efficient analysis. Here's another example, and this is a heating coil valve and a heat recovery loop between supplier and exhaust air. And again, we saw issues with optimizing it, and made the implementation and saw nice clean data afterwards. And here's again a carpet plot for time schedule for the air handling unit. And in this case here, I like this graph because I remember submitting that report, the analysis, around the 20th of June. And it's great to see that the implementation went in right away. And before, it was on 24/7, and then the schedule was implemented. So you identify this, the energy flow in the system. You collect the data, you look at it, you perform an analysis, and how do you report it? I found that you can spend all day looking at data and getting into it and your Sherlock Holmes hat and really getting into the weeds. But at the end of the day, really the most valuable piece of information from the whole system, from the whole process, is telling the right person, here's what you need to do. And sometimes that works really well, and it's quick and effective if the team members are engaged and they're looking for that direction. And sometimes it takes a little back and forth, or sometimes it's more clearly understood and less clearly understood. What I found that the two most important components of reporting the results is, one, that the current performance is determined. You can show that report card. And two is that it is clear what needs to be done next, the action item. And here I want to ask the question, what reporting methods, graphs, key performance indicators, what have you found useful? Please enter into the chat. No, I'm sorry. Yeah, the chat. What key, like which of those items, what have you found that you tend to go to when you're doing analysis or evaluations? What we have here is, this is a tool that we use. It's a web-based software that enables creating graphs and then linking them to data that you upload, and then we provide kind of a tiered report where the first thing you look at is the highest tier, overall high level, what needs to be the assessment and what needs to be done, and then enabling to do some clicks to dig down into the details of, well, okay, why is the air handling unit not optimal, or why do I need to adjust a temperature set point? So some lessons learned that we've experienced: monitoring-based commissioning, or data analysis for energy or building performance. So sometimes it's a harder sell. For new construction, it's often the mentality of from the project team to get to that handover point. And granted, there are oftentimes commissioning requirements for follow-up verification after handover. But it's also often assumed that a new project or a new construction project is not going to have any issues, because, again, like the earlier slide, it's a brand new product. It's going to be well made. Like, why plan for there being issues? And then we've seen with existing buildings that if energy performance is something that is desired, then oftentimes a smaller scope investment is what is pursued first. Like benchmarking and energy audits tend to cost less than doing a monitoring-based commissioning process, and that is indeed the case. And like I said before, often what you find through monitoring-based commissioning is the low and no cost measures, tweaks to schedules and set points or other controls items. It does also reveal if there are fundamental issues with equipment, or that fixes need to be made in the field. But sometimes a first pass energy audit would reveal that, and oftentimes you want to address those big replacement items or fixes before you dive into the further nuance of operation. And that's just the nature of that. Let's see. We found that if you have an effective tool for analyzing data, you set that. It takes a little bit of time with the first analysis to set that up. Typically, what we've seen is as a year-long set of data is optimal, then you can see the building performance throughout the course of a whole year. And it's great to break that up in quarterly segments or so to check in and make corrections before waiting for a whole year has gone by. It's also effective to do a shorter analysis with only a few weeks of data that already reveals lots, but roughly a quarter of the time spent for subsequent analyses is what's required after you set it up that first time. If you have an effective tool, then you do that first analysis and setup, and then a month or two down the road, you check back in with the data, you grab the data and upload it, and you're able to go through the process much quicker. And oftentimes that data itself is the difficult part of the process, because sometimes you don't get the data is incomplete or doesn't reflect actual operation, or it's hard to even get your hands on the data. This is one more slide here, and then I'm going to wrap up. These are I've kind of lumped together the different tool types for analyzing data, and I'm not going to read through all of these right now, but wanted to make this available for afterwards. Excel is the most, I guess, the first level go-to, and another graphing calculation software. They're very flexible, they're easy to work with, but it tends to take a lot of time to set up, to create the graphs that you're looking for, or to manipulate the data. Building automation system often has trending or history already programmed in, and that's great to be able to sit at the terminal and be able to click on that button and see what that system has been doing over the last days or weeks. But of course, you're bound by however that is set up, and if it's not set up or if it's not creating the graphs that you're looking for, then there's not much you can do. Energy management control system, that takes it to another level where that tracks the energy consumption and can go so far as to make adjustments to operation based on that history. And then there's fault detection and diagnostics, or FDD, and that ranges that specialty software that provides all the bells and whistles and the analysis, and can be set up to live stream that data into the tool and perform a real-time analysis, or to export data for one-off analyses and so on. And so I want to throw out that question. I'd be curious what experience you have with these tools, or what you tend to go with and why. Okay. And so really what it comes then down to is another key term in the industry today is data. And data is becoming more and more available, but it brings with it the bigger, ever-growing question is what to do with data. And monitoring-based commissioning is meant to use data to get you from the parts in your driveway to the performance that you're looking for. And we've seen, and I myself have seen, the value that it can bring. Okay, so I'm going to, let's see. I'm going to, open it up for questions.
All right, thank you, Ben. And I'm going to start off with this first question, but as we're doing question and answer, if you have any, make sure to place them in the question box on your side panel. So with that, the first question is, what is PMV and PPD? What's the name of the thermal comfort measuring station?
Great, I will go back to that slide. Hold on a second, let's see if there's a faster way to do that. So, These two acronyms come from ASHRAE Standard 55, which quantifies and details thermal comfort for people based on what their activity is in the space. You know, are they moving around? Is it a gym, or is it an office where they're just sitting there, and have different metabolic outputs, and also breathing and sweating, and also mix with the kind of clothes that they tend to wear. Again, in a gym, when they're wearing shorts and a t-shirt versus a full suit, and the time of year. And it provides calculations on taking the input from these various measurements, and to calculate the PMV and PPD. PMV is percentage mean vote, and the PPD is the percentage of persons dissatisfied. And it means that let's see, the PMV, it's I have to look at the exact units, but the closer you get to 0 reflects the amount of people who would be uncomfortable, or the amount of discomfort that people are experiencing in the space. And then the PPD is percentage of people dissatisfied, and because you can't please everybody, that's more of the, I think the goal is 80%, or percent of persons dissatisfied, so less than 20%. And this tool, I forget offhand the manufacturer, but it's called a thermal comfort measuring station, and I can find that out and get that back to you if you'd like.
Thank you. The next question is, how are you visualizing the data? I like this discussion about what the data means, but how are you doing this analysis effectively, efficiently, quickly, and repeatedly?
We use, in the past, we've used Excel, and we've used a MATLAB-based tool called PIA. And currently, we use a tool. There are numerous tools out there for or software tools for visualizing and preparing data. In this case here, this tool that we use is called Cinevision, and there are some other tools that we've looked at as well before. They tend to fall under the fault detection diagnostics. And the benefit of that is, and there's also a tool called Universal Translator that we've used. It's a lot of times difficult because the data that you receive for operation, for what we see here, it tends to be large data files. The data files are CSV or Excel files with each data point listed and the timestamps, and then the values for each data point and timestamp. And if you're using Excel, then you grab that and you work with the spreadsheet, and you put in your calculations, and then you link it to a chart. And depending on how you set that up, or if you set up macros with that, or pivot tables, then the next time you get data, and then the repeatability comes in. The next time you get data, you copy that data into your spreadsheet and do the tweaks that are necessary to create the graphs. That's doing it by hand, and then copying and pasting those graphs into a report. A lot of these fault detection and diagnostic softwares, they facilitate uploading that data. In this case here, we receive data, and and the software takes you through a wizard. You input the data file, and you follow the wizard to detail where it should look for which pieces of information about the data. Where should it look for in the file for the data point name, for the values, for the timestamp. And then in that software, you set up graphs and you link them to these data points that you're uploading. And they all have different capabilities for generating a report. The nice thing about that is that once you set it up, the next time you go through the process, you take the data files and you import them into the tool. And if the data is the same format, then it goes quickly and it latches onto the data points that were there before. Yeah, the reporting is different. The tool that we use is web-based. So we create a report that's online, and we share the link with our clients. Yeah, the only other ways I know of providing those reports is if the software is installed on the building automation system or linked to the building. And the benefit of that is that you can see the charts in real time, and be able to react immediately. But it takes a bigger investment to implement that system in the building automation system. But
thank you. Oh,
yeah,
sorry.
That's it. Go ahead.
Okay, I apologize for that. The next question is, are the heating/cooling coil valves manually operated?
In this case here, the example that I shared, they were automatically operated. I shared an example here, and also one. Nope. And one here. And in this case, it was automatically operated, but for some reason at night, the cooling coil just got locked at 30%. And sometimes
right, thank you.
Yeah.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
I apologize again.
keep doing that. All right, go ahead.
The next question is, how big of a help is it to have occupancy sensors installed?
Occupancy sensors. So we've seen, well, in general, we've seen that have a big impact on energy performance. When we see occupancy sensors can be used to turn the lights on and off. They can also be used to activate the heating and cooling or airflow in the room. And there's unoccupied settings and there's occupied settings. Turning lights on and off tends to have a bigger energy consumption impact than adjusting room temperature, a room temperature set point. So the bigger savings from adjusting room temperature based on occupancy come from adjusting it for the nighttime. So in terms of going a good 10 hours or 12 hours with a lessened, a less demanding set point. But that can be implemented through scheduling on the building automation system. Doesn't necessarily require occupancy sensors, but I have seen them implemented yeah, actually it's helpful in spaces that maybe are not so frequently occupied, like conference rooms.
Thank you. We have time for about one or two more questions. The next question is, how would the humidity levels change if both the heating and cooling coils are not supposed to work together?
Let's see. Well, it depends. And I want to look at the schematic I have here for heating and cooling together. It depends on if the hot water, which comes first, the hot water coil or the cooling coil. If often if this, yeah, and what we have here, we have the hot water coil before the cooling coil. If the system is not made to do dehumidification, then and especially if if the hot water coil is placed before the cooling coil, in order to help with freeze protection. If it's the winter and you start up the system and you get a little bit of a blast of cold air coming in, you have that hot water coil activating to help protect the system. But if they're on at the same time, in this case, then it heats up and then just cools down again, and it doesn't really have an impact on the humidity. But if they're reversed, or often, they're rarely reversed. Usually, if you have dehumidification in the air handling unit, you'll have 2 heating coils, one before the cooling coil and one after the cooling coil. And that's the reheat for when you're doing dehumidification. And I'm thinking if you have, say, for example, if you have cooling on full blast and then you're adjusting a reheat coil, then that's gonna make for, yeah, over dehumidification of your space. And that's just the same, really, essentially, that you have dehumidification running more than it should.
Okay, thank you so much. I am going to switch back to my screen for a few final announcements. We're right at our 3 o'clock mark now. All right. Again, thank you so much, Ben, for volunteering your time to present with us. And as a reminder, you will receive an email with your attendance certificate and a recording of this webinar. If you are interested in obtaining a copy of the presentation, please email Ben at b.burgoyne@baumann-us.com. AE West has transitioned to be a full virtual event in 3 weeks. The event will be held on June 23rd through 25th. It will feature keynote speakers, technical sessions, a full virtual expo hall, and plenty of networking opportunities. Registration is now open for only $49 for AE members. To register or for more information, please visit west.aeecenter.org. Additionally, AE World will not be a live in-person event in Denver, Colorado this September. We will be evaluating several different options, and we appreciate your patience while we make alternative plans. You can find additional details about our events on our website. We are continuing to offer online training and remote proctoring, and we are adding new training opportunities, so please make sure to check our website for all updates. Additionally, we will continue to offer our 2 other webinar series, AE member webinars and our Straight Talk on COVID-19's impact on the energy industry webinar series. You can view the full schedule and register for upcoming webinars under the Member Benefits tab on our website. Our next webinar will be part of our COVID-19 series this Thursday, June 4th at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. It will feature Barney Swan on humanizing the new era of business and ESG. As many of you already know, Barney Swan is the son of Robert Swan, who was a keynote speaker at our 2019 AE World Energy Conference and Expo. Both Robert and Barney Swan helped to carry the AE flag to the South Pole earlier this year. We are really looking forward to his presentation on Thursday. Thank you again to all of our attendees for joining us and to our presenter. Please stay safe, and I hope you all have a wonderful day. Thank you.